So, what actually happens to human consciousness in the very first 90 seconds after you die? I mean, it's literally the oldest question in human history, right? But the answer we're diving into today, yeah, it's going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew.
Now, ancient mythology usually paints this picture of the afterlife as some sort of gloomy underworld. You know, just a passive, endless realm of shadows and dust. But what if there was an ancient text that described something entirely different, something highly clinical?
And strictly bureaucratic? I'm talking about a system operating with the cold, calculated precision of a modern corporate infrastructure. A massive, cosmic recycling system that actually processes your soul instead of judging it. Today, we're breaking down a fascinating document that treats death, well, basically as a rigid administrative protocol.
The 90-second protocol, Secrets of the Uric Tablet.
Section 1. The Hidden Sumerian Tablet.
Okay, so to really grasp how bizarre this whole thing is, we've got to look at the timeline of this fractured clay tablet. Back in 1854, an archaeologist actually pulled it straight from the ruins of ancient Uruk. It got boxed up, shipped off to a museum, and literally just sat there, unread, for almost 170 years. Why? Because the cuneiform was this incredibly old, ridiculously complex dialect. But then, in 2018, a private institution finally stepped up and funded a full translation. And the results? Well, they were so disturbing that the linguists involved actually demanded absolute anonymity. In fact, one of them quietly fled academia entirely.
And honestly, the reason they were so unnerved makes total sense once you actually look at the contents. See, unlike pretty much every other Sumerian text out there, this tablet doesn't even mention epic wars or great floods or heroic gods. Nothing like that. Instead, it's written in this super clinical first-person prose, and it's divided strictly into 12 distinct sequences. The first 3 sequences, they map out the exact geography of the threshold you cross right when you die. Then, the middle 4 describe this highly specific decision point, and the final 5 outline a strict, rigid protocol for exactly what happens if a consciousness refuses the option it's given. It's not a myth. It's literally a step-by-step administrative manual for a postmortem journey.
Section 2. The first 90 seconds.
Right, let's look at what actually happens the exact moment physical death occurs. Now, standard mythology usually called the underworld Kur, but our scribe uses this very secretive, very specific priestly term, Ben Na Azul. This roughly translates to the field that knows you. So it's not just some static, empty cave. It's a highly specific, responsive territory that literally reacts to exactly who you are as a consciousness entering it.
And right as you enter this field, a separation occurs. The scribe explicitly notes that there's absolutely no pain here and no fear. Instead, what you feel is this sudden, almost jarring sense of recognition. It's kind of like suddenly remembering something important that you'd completely forgotten. You realize you're being observed, even though you can't quite see by whom just yet. And the scribe gets incredibly precise right here, noting that this initial separation phase lasts anywhere from 40 to 110 seconds. Now, why the variance? Well, the duration changes based purely on what the scribe calls your weight. But obviously he doesn't mean physical weight. He's talking about the psychological weight of unresolved obligations, unfinished relationships, unspoken words, basically all your pending business. That weight anchors your consciousness for just a few extra moments before the field finally opens up.
So, at the very end of this phase, something appears. It's called the Milap. Now, in other contexts, this is usually translated as a terrifying radiance, but here, the scribe describes it as a warm, familiar, and very welcoming door. But here is the absolutely crucial part. This light, it doesn't pull you in like some sort of cosmic tractor beam. The scribe really hammers this point home. The light simply positions itself, and it waits. Patiently, you have to actively choose to walk towards it.
Section 3. The ultimate question.
And this brings us to the absolute most critical juncture of the whole process. As you approach that light, you are confronted by a presence. But right before it even speaks, there's this terrifying microsecond that the tablet calls the seeing. In that fraction of a second, your consciousness is essentially shown the terms of a contract. It's like an instant, total downloaded understanding. You suddenly fully comprehend what you actually agreed to. And apparently this realization is so utterly terrifying that it's exactly why some souls just stop in their tracks and refuse the light altogether.
Then, immediately after the seeing, the voice actually speaks. Now, it doesn't give you any instructions, it doesn't explain what or where home even is, it just asks one simple question in archaic Sumerian. Are you going home now? And here's the catch. There are only 2 valid answers acceptable to the system, yes or no. The crucial takeaway here is this absolute rigid binary. If you hesitate for even a second too long, boom, processed as a no. Stay silent. That's a no. Try to ask a counter question. No. The system doesn't even need you to actively refuse it. It literally just requires the absence of a crystal clear yes.
Section 4. The price of refusal. So, what exactly happens if you don't say yes? Well, the final sequences of the tablet detailed the precise mechanical consequences. The very second a consciousness declines, 3 things happen in super rapid succession. First, that warm light, it doesn't just gently fade away. It actively recedes, almost like it's being pulled back by whatever put it there in the first place. The door basically closes from the inside. Second, all that warmth completely vanishes, but we're not talking about a drop in room temperature here. The scribe calls it an ontological cold. It's this deep, psychological freezing where you suddenly feel the complete absence of being known. That responsive field that was just holding you in its attention, it simply stops looking at you. And third, those unseen observers you felt during those first few seconds, they finally step right out of the shadows and become fully, terrifyingly visible.
The tablet refers to these observers as Gala. Now, if you know standard Sumerian myth, Gala are usually depicted as these terrifying demons who hunt down souls. But once again, our scribe completely flips the script. In this manual, they aren't demons at all. They don't speak, they don't threaten you, and they certainly don't torture you. They're just administrative agents. Basically, cosmic bureaucrats who are just there to execute the refusal protocol. They arrive with this chilling, cold efficiency to simply escort your consciousness away, all because you opted out of the primary system.
Section 5. The recycling protocol.
Okay, so where do these bureaucratic agents actually take you? They escort you to a place called Area K. It's described as a space between levels. Honestly, think of it like a massive purgatory-like waiting room. It looks almost exactly like the living world you just left behind, but with these really subtle, nauseating distortions. Like the colors are just slightly off, sounds don't quite match their sources, and people sort of glitch in and out of view. In Area K, you get to watch your family continue living their lives, but you literally cannot intervene. You can't speak to them, and they can never see you. You're just trapped there, usually for about 30 to 70 Earth years. But once that temporal window finally closes, you transition into a permanent state called Leah, which translates to the one who lost the thread. At this stage, that original offer of the warm light, it is permanently revoked. That door is never, ever opening for you again.
According to the scribe, the absolute only way out of that Leah state is to illegally bind your consciousness to a living body. And guys, this is brilliantly fascinating because it totally illustrates how this tablet views the paranormal. It completely strips away all the Hollywood magic. What pretty much every culture on Earth calls a haunting or a demonic possession or a spiritual attachment, this ancient manual classifies it merely as a statistical anomaly. It's nothing more than a desperate, totally unauthorized workaround executed by souls who missed their processing window and are now just stuck in a highly stressed administrative system.
When we finally zoom out and look at the system's true purpose, the scope of it is just staggering. The scribe explicitly states that this entire infrastructure was built by those who oversee the threshold. That's a management body supposedly even older than the Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki. This whole cosmic machine exists for one single purpose, Bala, which means the return. It's a massive, universe-scale recycling protocol designed to pull consciousness into a central repository, redistribute it, and then redeploy it. The crazy part? The vocabulary the scribe uses here is the exact same terminology ancient administrators used for simple inventory management and worker rotation. Most importantly, you need to understand that this is absolutely not a moral filter. It doesn't care at all about your sins or your virtues or whether you are a good person. It literally only cares about processing materials. And chillingly, the tablet makes a little side note. Because the refusal rate has been steadily rising for centuries, those waiting rooms in Area K, yeah, they're dangerously overflowing.
Now, the anonymous scribe who actually recorded all this leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling thought. He straight up admits that despite writing this entire manual, he has absolutely no idea what the right answer to the voice's question actually is. The system didn't give him the answer, it only gave him the protocol. He says he wrote it down simply so that whoever found it and read it would at least know the question was coming. It gives you a little bit of time to prepare before that voice speaks. His final, haunting sentence reads, "When you read this, I will have already faced the question." He never tells us what he chose.
Which of course brings this ancient mystery right to your doorstep. Seriously, just take a second and look around the room you're sitting in right now. Think about the people you love. Just listen to the everyday sounds of the world around you. According to this 4,000-year-old administrative manual, you have already signed the contract. The terms are fully locked in place, and there's no backing out. The only question that remains for us is this: what will your answer be when the light finally arrives?